We came from the court, branch 46. Pasensya na po kayo, medyo mapagin yung boses ko dahil namaster ko. So the court this morning handed down its decision in libel Rey Santos Ressa and Rappler. And the judgment is a judgment of conviction for both Maria and Rey. But the court exonerated Rappler as a court of entity. The judgment is for cyber libel, and the sentence of imprisonment is from 6 months and 1 day to 6 years of imprisonment. On our motion, with no objection from the prosecution, the court allowed Maria and Rey to remain free on bail using the same bail that they previously used. So, obviously, we have yet to study the decision in its entirety. Kakahawak na namin the decision. We have not yet studied, analyzed, discussed the decision. So, we will still have to meet with, I will still have to meet with Maria and Rey to discuss legal steps forward. So, obviously, legal steps forward would include questioning the decision and the appropriate proceeding, whether motion for reconsideration or an appeal. So, but as of this moment, we still have yet to make a decision. We will still have to meet. We'll have to go over the decision carefully, talk about it, discuss its implications, and then we will make that decision. We have 15 days from today to make that decision. So, within 15 days, we will probably update you on what we will be doing. Okay, so turn over to Maria and Rey for reactions. Okay?
Am I breaking the law? Am I breaking the law if I take my mask off? Mask on.
Mask on, mask on.
Sabi mask on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not even physically distant.
Okay, because I can see everybody. I think, taken alone, I think the decision for me is devastating because it essentially says that Rappler that we are wrong. I think that's you can look at the body of evidence that is there and see, taken in the context of everything that has happened to us, the fact that the case, I now still face 7 criminal charges. It's not unexpected. And at the same time, again, I feel like we will keep fighting. I think this is a blow. It's a blow to us. But it's also not unexpected considering that we are going to stand up against any kinds of attacks against press freedom. This is the first. It's followed by a whole slew of other cases of tax evasion, and then a whole slew that is based on foreign ownership and securities fraud. I really love that I became a criminal all in 1 year, several times. Having said that, I appeal to you, the journalists in this room, the Filipinos who are listening, to protect your rights. We are meant to be a cautionary tale. We are meant to make you afraid, right? So, I appeal again. Don't be afraid. Because if you don't use your rights, you will lose them. If we don't challenge a brazen move to try to roll back the rights guaranteed in the Constitution, we will lose them. We shouldn't be voluntarily giving up our rights. We will take this, well, as Ted just said, we haven't really talked about it, right? But, we will fight. So, sa mga Pilipino na nanonood po, hindi lang po ito tungkol sa Rappler. Hindi lang po ito tungkol sa amin. Tungkol po ito sa inyo. Because freedom of the press is the foundation of every single right you have as a Filipino citizen. Pag wala pong katotohanan, pag hindi po namin mapigil ang mga somebody give me the word, power. If we can't hold power to account, we can't do anything. Pag hindi po namin makakayanin, if we can't do our jobs, then your rights will be lost. So sana po, tingnan po natin ang mga nangyayari sa kapaligiran natin ngayon, no? Ito pong mga restrictions. COVID-19, tama po yun. Dapat naman po tayo nag-physical distancing. Yung shutdown po ng ABS-CBN, that would have been unthinkable before this time. It has happened. And then an anti-terror bill that will take away, codify, institutionalize these abuses of power. It means that you can be called a terrorist and without a warrant of arrest, you can be arrested for writing something. Any perceived critic, that you can be kept in jail for up to 24 days. Tingnan naman po natin ang lahat ng nangyayari sa atin. Bayan nyo. Sure?
If you have questions, I'll use this with a wet wipe. If you have questions, does anyone have questions? No questions from the media? We're too tired. We're too tired. If you no longer have questions, no more ambition to be read. So if you have questions, please ask them now. Yes, you heard the mic. Guys. Maria.
The appreciation of the judge on the confidential nature of the intelligence report.
I have just literally scanned, read very quickly. So I didn't notice any, but I can assure you. I really just very quickly scanned the decision. We asked that the dispositive portion be read only, but the judge read the dispositive with a little additional note. But as to the confidential report, I think the judge used that in relation to its observation that there should have been verification. I think that is a statement that based on a very quick scan of the decision.
Can I add? I'm sorry, I know you've heard me say this a lot, right? But I think where this decision will be important to every Filipino are the 2 points. The republication, continuous publication. So pagka po nag-post kayo sa Facebook or nag-post kayo sa Twitter, yung period po ng liability, when the time when you can be sued has been moved from 1 year, which is what libel is, to 12 years. Ika-ask ng statute of limitations for the foreign journalists. That's the first. So essentially, because someone in Rappler changed a typo, fixed a misspelling, we are now sentenced to jail. I mean, to anything we can. And then the second thing is, so the idea of continuous publication. When you change that typo, that you are republishing this again. And so, if you have an article that had already lapsed, well, let's say you wrote it 12 years ago, but you found a typo and fixed it, the 12-year clock begins again. Offhand, we've only skimmed this, but there doesn't seem to be substantive measures for it. So let's see. I think those are things we need to look at because that's a death by 1,000 cuts of your rights. And mine, so that's also part of the reason, oh my lord, we have to fight.
A portion of the decision actually discusses Maria's mentions Maria's position as executive editor, which the court said is a clever ruse to avoid liability of officers in this organization who can be held responsible for libel. Do you really know the difference between the position of executive editor and editor-in-chief? And I think this underscores the difference between print and online media.
Okay, got it. So my lawyer just tells me, this will be the subject of the appeal. Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. But yes, so an executive editor in Rappler, and if you look at the wording of it, I read it very quickly and I had strong reactions. But the executive editor, what I am in charge of is our sales, our tech, our strategic direction. I have very little involvement in the day-to-day, unless it's a story about terrorism. The things that I think there are only two topics that I look in on. But the running of the day-to-day is our managing editor, Glenn DeGloria, and then we break it up. So I think part of this is that old names, old rules were applied for a completely new situation. And for a decision that actually says it is addressing a new threat, it uses old words, old ideas, and old comprehension of this. Right? Rappler is a test case on so many fronts. Sorry.
Well, an executive editor isn't exactly an place as the court seems to suggest.
An executive editor is
Executive editor isn't exactly
Yeah, it's definitely not an editor-in-chief because it's more, I guess, publisher, editor. I mean, it's actually, these are some of the things Ted is going to have to look at. But, this was our title when we began, when we started this company from nothing in 2011, the end of 2011. And you can see, with all the travels I do, you can see it's impossible for me to be involved in day-to-day. But I do set strategic direction for Rappler. The platform that you see, the new platform, Lighthouse, that's something that I was heavily, that's my baby, right? So I think one of the nice things about Rappler is that you can redefine what used to be and then fit it to the landscape that we live in today, the context we live in today. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, good morning. DC Nichols from CNN Philippines. What does this mean for Rappler as a news organization moving forward? I mean, I know that this is not only the case for DC, but I think this is the first debate in this convention. So, moving forward, where do you see Rappler going?
I have first-hand knowledge of the abuse of my rights, the violation of my rights. Rappler has been under attack for 4 years, right? And I think, where are we going? We know firsthand we're going to be, the mission of Rappler remains the same. And we will carry it out with far more, well, it can't be far more because we've already thrown everything into this. I think this is a pivotal moment for the Philippines and a pivotal moment for, not just for our democracy, but for the idea of what a free press means. And the thing is, it's not just in our country, it's all around the world, right? If you think about it, anything, and this is partly because of social media, anything that happens here will ripple all the way through the live stream that is on right now. There is a lawyer, one of our lead counsels from London, there's someone else from Australia, there's someone else from the United States. I think we're redefining what the new world is going to look like, what journalism is going to become. Are we going to lose freedom of the press? Will it be death by 1,000 cuts? Or are we going to hold the line so that we protect the rights that are enshrined in our Constitution? Even if power attacks you directly, and this is what our colleagues in the West are dealing with now, right? How do you deal with that when the people you're covering are the ones that have to? Short answer, we're going to aim to be better, stronger. Investigative journalism must continue, and please, I really, all of us should be doing this because we're at the precipice. If we fall over, we're no longer a democracy. And in many ways, that could be easier for all of us, right? I've worked under Suharto in Indonesia, Deng Xiaoping in China. The rules are very clear. This kind of gray area where if you go too far, you'll get slammed. Let's not play the game. Are we a democracy or not? Let us do our jobs.
Hi, I'm Joanna Godera from GG. My question is for Rey Santos.
just want to ask, you've been out of Rappler for many years now. You've worked in the public sector, now you're in the private sector. How do you feel now that there's a conviction?
Okay. I can't actually describe it. A lot of thoughts are coming to mind now. Sad, disappointed. Well, I know Maria, or I'm not a lawyer, and yet I'm dragged in this issue. So, it's sad. It's very sad, and for someone who's doing his job, to be here, I think it could be not just me, but other people who are doing his or her job properly, could be in the same situation that I am in right now. So, well, I haven't seen, I haven't read the promulgation yet. So there still are a lot of things to be discussed.
Just asking lang, what do you make of the imposition of a jail sentence because they have been voted from Turco sa Supreme Court where the Supreme Court will a jail sentence and just impose time, yet here there was a jail.
Well, that's always in the discretion of the court. So even in the case of Tulfo, which we cited, it was the discretion of the court. So when the penalty is given to the court's discretion, the court is free to exercise whether to impose imprisonment or a fine. Would we have preferred fine? We would have preferred acquittal, but in this case, the court went with imprisonment. The range, however, is pretty much within the range of the penalty that can be imposed. It is pretty much the entire range of the indeterminate sentence. And so, yeah, that leaves us with some legal discussions on how to go forward with this. There are implications. I will not mention them yet here because we really have not talked about it. There might be implications on what next steps to do with it.
Attorney Ted, what is going to be the process for the payment of the moral and exemplary damages that will be needed?
Well, no, that's contingent on the judgment becoming final. So should the judgment become final, then that's the only time. Right now, we have a 15-day period to consider options, and so yes, we will take that 15-day period to consider options. But no, the monetary award of damages is not immediately executory. It is subject to review, and so it becomes executory only upon finality of the judgment.
Morning. Pardon me, that's why we spoke last night. So I just want to ask, I know you haven't read the entire decision, but it just, it appears that the judge threw out all other elements and all other arguments, everything else that you were saying, that you've been saying actually in the last few days, and zeroed in on what is in the article. Is that how you feel? And the judge also, in my interpretation, was saying that Rappler did not do due intelligence in its investigative report. What are your thoughts on this? If you're allowed to even comment on that.
Okay. I think the judge focused on one part of the information, one part of the charge, but also did not focus on another part. The judge focused on the part where there was an allegation of damage to reputation, but the judge also did not have a very extensive discussion on republication in relation to the specific participation of the two accused. And so again, we will probably review the decision very carefully for purposes of any other legal procedures to be taken. Definitely, definitely we don't agree with the decision. And the nuances perhaps that were brought up in our memorandum, in our motion to quash, I think all of those need to be considered. So this is the first stage. It basically just opens up new steps to be taken. So yes, we will look at the judgment in its entirety. Take a look at how the judge appreciated the evidence or failed to appreciate the evidence, and then we will take it from there. But I do agree that the judge focused on that part, particularly the part where the private complainant said that it was not a Rappler did not do enough to correct the injury. So, but of course, we don't agree with that. But looking at the entire bigger picture, perhaps that could have been addressed by the judge. Thank you.
Sir, also anyone from the preview, how does this impact investigative journalism? The courts appreciate the Rappler's referencing of an intelligence report. How does it impact the type of journalism that does provide pressures, relies on alternative sources like documents that are given exclusively because of the trust involved? The type of journalism that perhaps, there's a sense of confidentiality on the types of storytelling. Perhaps also from Rey Santos Jr. who's been doing this type of journalism for quite a time.
I worry about that because, I wrote an entire book based on intelligence documents, Seeds of Terror, my very first book on terrorism. A lot of those documents given to me by Philippine intelligence, right? There's an entire book that has been vetted and checked. My second book is the same, right? So what does this mean? Even on the merits of this particular case, and again, we haven't read it, so let me preface it with that, but the agency that did that intelligence report is different from the PIDEA, which is the certification Mr. Kang got. Those were the things we were verifying. I think, courage means if someone powerful comes after you to tell you to take down a story, that you don't just blindly take it down, that you double check, that you triple check, because it could be a way to intimidate you. What does this mean for investigative journalism? Well, we know this firsthand. The Inquirer, Rappler, everybody did the story on the frigate scandal, and for that, we were kicked out of the palace, and President Duterte himself admitted to that story. There's a Damocles sword hanging over journalists' heads, and what I recommend, this is the lesson we've learned in 4 years of this, is that you have to look at that sword, acknowledge that it's meant to make you doubt yourself, it's meant to make you not push as hard because there will be consequences. What you need to do is to back that away and look ahead and do the stories. Because if we all do the stories, we will then create the reality that we will be able to see what we live in. Investigative journalism is more important today than ever. So much is happening in an opaque gray area, including the numbers of how many COVID-19s we really have, right? And I appeal to government to learn to work with journalists. We're here to help make sure our country runs better. We're not your enemy. Let us do our jobs.
We're very sorry to hear about the decision, but at the end, I just wanted to ask a question of procedure because the conviction provided in determining sentence, and it's a range of 6 months to 6 years. So who will determine the actual sentence that will be served? And well, I hope it doesn't come to that. But I just wanted to ask how will this process go moving forward?
Yeah, okay. Let me explain that indeterminate part. And this, I hope you will pardon the technical language. This is law school. The judge imposed what we call an indeterminate sentence of 6 months and 1 day to 6 years of imprisonment. That is the sentence. Okay, that is the sentence. It means that if the judgment becomes final, then that is the sentence that will be served. The reason for the range is that the law gives the person who is convicted the eligibility to apply for parole upon satisfying the minimum of the sentence. So here, the minimum of the sentence is 6 months and 1 day. After 6 months and 1 day, then the person who is convicted may now apply for parole, start applying for parole. And then the upper end of the sentence, the 6 years, that is the longest the person can be in jail. So the moment the person serves 6 years, then that person is out. So that's the indeterminate sentence. No other person will have to impose that. That is what the judge imposed. Now, of course, that can change if we go up on appeal, right? Because if we win the appeal, then it will be overturned. But that is what it says.
Just a very quick follow-up, Maria. While the bail is still active, but I think that one of the biggest consequences of this conviction is it will prevent you from traveling outside the Philippines because of the existing conviction. So, what are your thoughts on that, especially since you've been quite active in the international community in terms of raising concerns on the state of press freedom in the Philippines?
That was also brought up by the judge because previously the motions for travel abroad had been addressed to her. Should we go up on appeal, then those motions will have to be addressed to the Court of Appeals. So it doesn't mean that she will be restricted. It just means you have to ask for permission, and that's the case with every person who is charged in court. Yes, that's the procedure for everyone, regardless of who it is. Every travel, if you are charged with an offense, every travel will have to be requested from the court. Well, yes, of course. But again, that's the procedure.
Can I add to that? So what's been happening over the last few years is the walls are kind of closing in, right? It's been more than a year that I've had to ask for approval to travel from different courtrooms. I had to post bail 8 times in order to stay free to keep working. And each one of those charges, the judge there has to give me approval to travel. This one, so here's something I'd like you to really look at, and I would address this to Facebook as well. In 2016, narratives, attacks against journalists and news organizations were seeded exponentially on Facebook, on social media. The goal of this was to turn journalists, right, which is what I am, into the word criminal, which is apparently now what I am. Reality just took a little bit longer, but you can see how the messages seeded on social media become reality later on. And it's not just actually in my case, right? If you look at Laila de Lima's case, the seeding of the messages on social media, there'll be a study coming out on this. It showed that even before she was arrested, #arrest Laila de Lima was deliberately seeded, trended, and then she was arrested a few weeks later. Be aware of this insidious manipulation. I ask Facebook to be aware and protect journalists. Don't strip away the protection our Constitution gives us. Because this is definitely death by 1,000 cuts. I'm sorry to overuse that, but that's the way it feels, right? This is not a death blow. In fact, I'm hoping that we will come out stronger Because there's that other quote, Nietzsche said it, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is making us stronger, right? But if all of us demand accountability, if all of us do investigative journalism, our world will be much better today.
Last question.
Hello, Maria. This is Sarah from the National Museum Theater. Maybe you already mentioned, but I couldn't hear properly because here the sound is not good. Can we have briefly, how many times did you post bail and how much have you already paid in total with the whole all the cases? And also, all this second question, all these attacks to Rappler came in the last 4 years under the current administration. So, do you think that after 2022, the situation, press freedom in the Philippines would be better, situation would change, or this is already a serious precedent that maybe other future governments in the Philippines may take advantage of these attacks to press freedom? Thank you.
So it's kind of like getting COVID-19. You know, it's meant to kill you if you're one of the 4% where it can be lethal. But if you survive it, it could also damage you irreparably. Right? Your lungs could be damaged irreparably. I think that's what's happening now. Our press freedom has already been rolled back because we are a cautionary tale. And that has an impact on our democracy. How well are we doing our jobs when we are personally attacked? And then the second thing is in terms of what actually happened. Let me go over the 4 years, right? In 2016, the exponential attacks on social media, what we call the propaganda war, began. And when we published this 3-part series, I was getting an average of 90 hate messages per hour. Those same narrative attacks came out of President Duterte's mouth in 2017 in his State of the Nation address. A week later, that seemed to open the floodgates to the weaponization of the law. We got our first subpoena, and then a few months later, in January 2018, a closure order from the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's very similar to what happened to ABS-CBN. A small regulatory agency revokes our license to operate. We fought it. We're fighting it. We continue to fight it. But in 2018, in a little over a year, we had 11 cases and investigations. 2019, they went to trial. And I had to post, Rappler, our board of directors from 2015, we had to post bail. I have 8 criminal charges. It's unprecedented, you know, I'm entering, next year will be my 35th year as a journalist. I began as a reporter in 1986, and I have worked in so many countries around the world. I've been shot at and threatened, but never this kind of death by 1,000 cuts. This is like getting a disease. It doesn't go away, and sometimes you're weak, sometimes you're strong. But I think what we have to do is we collectively have to find a vaccine. And that's what we're going to be working really hard to do. We have to fight back and protect our rights, the constitutional rights guaranteed to us. How much have we posted in bail? I don't know the most recent one. I can send me an email and I can ask our CFO, but I do know that the last time I checked, which was maybe 2 years ago, we had posted more in bail and bonds than Imelda Marcos, who's been convicted in 4 different countries. And I've been arrested. I've had arrests with an S, and you know, I don't want to call attention to that. But I do think the other question we have is, what is selective justice? And this has been a question in Filipinos' minds, particularly with the lockdown that we've had. So again, I appeal to the judiciary to uphold the rule of law and to maintain the checks and balances.
Thank you, guys.
If you have any other, I will release the official statement of Rappler through the Google folder that I sent you earlier. Thank you.